In Greek myth, Cassandra was the prophet whose warnings were cursed never to be heeded until it was too late. In presidential politics, Rudy Giuliani has become the prophet whose warnings he is cursed never to have issued until it was too late. On the campaign trail, he talks about his terrorism scholarship before 9/11. He says only he saw the real danger posed by al-Qaeda. But in our fourth story in the countdown, a secret document which you were never meant to see until after November 2008 has now been leaked, refuting Giuliani's claims with his own words. Typical of his claim to foresight was a presidential campaign speech this summer in which he discussed the 1993 bombing of the World Trade Center.
Thanks a lot. It was a big mistake to not recognize that it was a terrorist act and an act of war. And then we were attacked at Khobar Towers, Kenya, Tanzania. 17 of our sailors were killed on the USS Cole, and the United States government, under then President Clinton, did not respond. Bin Laden declared war on us. We didn't hear it. I thought it was pretty clear at the time, but a lot of people didn't see it, couldn't see it.
Never mind that al-Qaeda's culpability for the Cole was only established after Mr. Bush's election, and that Mr. Bush then did nothing about it. Now New York's Village Voice newspaper reports that in the testimony before the 9/11 Commission on count after count, Giuliani revealed little knowledge of or policy decisions influenced by the threat of al-Qaeda. According to one commission memo, it was only after 9/11 that, quote, we brought in people to brief us on al-Qaeda. We had nothing like this pre-9/11, which was a mistake. And Giuliani's own police commissioner told the commission, I was not happy with NYPD's intelligence in general when he took the job in 2000, 7 years after the first bombing. Other items from the commission, Giuliani said Commissioner Carrick knows more than he does about software that might help in the war on terror, and that Giuliani had, quote, no knowledge about the amplifier system installed after the 1993 bombing to improve communications. Let's bring in the reporter who broke this story, Wayne Barrett of the Village Voice, author of Grand Illusion, the untold story of Rudy Giuliani and 9/11, and probably the source of more Giuliani reporting than anyone else. Wayne, thanks for your time tonight.
David, glad to be here.
Wayne, give us the broad outline of the degree of terrorism expertise Giuliani claimed in his secret testimony to the 9/11 Commission.
Zero, David. It was a confession of ignorance, David. He basically said, I knew nothing about al-Qaeda. He mentioned Joseph Bodansky, who was an expert on al-Qaeda, who had written a book about bin Laden in 1999 that actually predicted spectacular attacks on New York and Washington. And he mentioned that he brought in Bodansky after 9/11 for a briefing, and that this was really the first time that he was brought up to date on that. They asked him, well, what about the information that you were receiving on threats between 98 and 2001? And he said, when I look back on it now, I know it was al-Qaeda, but at the time I had no idea it was al-Qaeda. So it was really across the board just an admission that he knew absolutely nothing about it. And now, as he goes around the country, he talks about how he wants to institute ComStat, which was the special program developed by the NYPD to fight crime. He wants to institute that to fight terrorism when he's president. So he was asked in the same secret briefing, private briefing, what about using ComStat to fight terrorism? And he said, ask Bernie about that, referring to Bernie Carrick. He knows more about it than I do. Then he said, ask the current NYPD, run by Mike Bloomberg's police commissioner, Ray Kelly. But he didn't know anything about the application of ComStat to terrorism. These are the kinds of answers he gave.
And in that period, in the late 1990s, when Giuliani is referring to what the Clinton administration should have known, the contrast between what Giuliani knew then and what he is saying that he knew now about what was going on during that period, is that the biggest contrast with this current campaign rhetoric?
Well, I think that the whole statement here, I mean, even when you get to some of the issues that the firefighters, for example, have raised about the radios and how the radios malfunctioned in '93 and yet they were stuck with the same radios. This is in April 20th of 2004, and he's asked about the radios, and he doesn't know anything about it. He says, ask Richie Shire, who was the director of emergency management in the latter Giuliani years, who now works at Giuliani Partners. Ask him about the radios. I don't really know anything about it. Then they asked him about the repeater, which was supposed to amplify radio communications. After the 93 bombing, it was installed. They asked him about the repeater at the World Trade Center, and he said he had no knowledge of it. This is 3 years after 9/11. So he still wasn't studying the response issues that would logically be raised in a presidential campaign.
Wayne, when you look at what Rudy Giuliani's general approach was to terrorism before he started running for president, he does seem at least sort of in sync with President Clinton's approach. Is there any sign that Giuliani's revisionist history on the campaign trail now is at least in part an attempt to undercut the terror credentials of either of the Clintons?
Oh, I think it's explicitly that. He talks about Bill Clinton's decade of denial. That clip you just played was a rendition of all of the terrorist incidents that occurred during the Clinton era. And as you mentioned, he brings up the Cole, even though the Cole happened in 2 months. There were only 2 months remaining in the Clinton administration, and it was basically a Bush decision. The 9/11 Commission quotes Condi Rice as saying, we decided, there was a consensus that developed within the administration not to retaliate.
And Wayne, real quickly, before we have to let you go, the testimony was not supposed to be made public until after the 2008 elections. How did that come about, and was that a condition of Mayor Giuliani's testimony to begin with?
It wasn't just Mayor Giuliani's testimony that was going to be withheld until December 2008. It was a wide variety of testimony that related to the city's response. I have the testimony of virtually everyone who testified regarding the city's response, and all of that was to be withheld until after 2008's election.
Wayne Barrett, senior editor of The Village Voice, author of Grand Illusion, The Untold Story of Rudy Giuliani, and a hell of a scoop. Wayne, thanks for your time tonight. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.